Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Well, if we've never met, my name is Jai, not Jay. I'm his better-looking counterpart. Well, if you're watching, Jay, good morning. Love you. No, I'm the student pastor here at the Crossing. If we haven't met, Jay is sick, so I got the call last night, and if I say anything that offends you, I've been up since 3. No, I'm just kidding. I have been up since 3, but hey, so no, we've hit shuffle, and so you never know what you're going to get. And this morning, you get me, all right? So there you go. I hope you are on and ready to roll. All right, so who's ever fallen victim to miscommunication? Anybody? All right, a few of us. I despise miscommunication. Like I have no clue where I'm at on the Enneagram and personality, all that kind of stuff. But I despise miscommunication so bad because I'm like a peacekeeper. I don't like conflict. It's just not my thing. So I despise miscommunication so much so that like I'll go to great lengths to try to make sure that I'm like not miscommunicating anything just because I really don't want it. So if you're upset with me, I want you to come with it because I don't want any stuff between me and you, all right? But I'll go to great lengths to make sure I'm not miscommunicating something. And so there was one day particular that me and some of the staff members had just gotten home from the Orange Conference. It's a conference that takes place in Atlanta, Georgia. It's all about family ministry, ministering to students, parents, kiddos. And so we had just gotten back, and we pulled, some of the staff of us pulled into the church parking lot, and we're tired, we're exhausted, we're ready to go home. It's been, a week of just long nights, lots of sessions, lots of teachings. And so most of the staff then, they had already gotten their cars and they had left, but I came into the student center to do a few last minute things. And so I go back out into the parking lot and just what's normal for us times, a lot of times we have officers who sit in the parking lot. They're just talking, they just find different places in Batavia to talk and do their job and things. So, but this day in this moment, I had walked out and for some reason, I'm messing with my luggage. I'm messing with my bag. And all of a sudden, my pre-workout, so this pre-workout that I take, it just helps you get energy to exercise. I took it so I could be in the hotel and exercise. I unzip my bag, and my pre-workout that is white powder spills everywhere. And in my mind, I know some of you are going, you know what's going to come of this, right? I'm like, I can see it now in the future. It's like 5 o'clock news, right? Youth pastor, arrested for cocaine. And my mind is going to like the worst places possible. And I'm just like, what do I do? What do I do? Because I'm like, again, I don't want miscommunication. I sure don't want to have to fix miscommunication of youth pastor being arrested for cocaine. So I'm like, okay, I know. So this is fruit punch flavored pre-workout. And it turns red when I put it in my shaker cup. So I'm not joking. I went to the youth building, I got cups of water, and I went back to the park. I'm like, I'm doing everything I can because I don't like miscommunication. It's just something that is me. I'm sorry. It's just so. But when as somebody who has done student ministry for 22 years, one of the biggest things that I see between the generations of the church is I see a huge communication breakdown. A huge communication breakdown. There are many youth and children's pastors that are out there right now that sometimes they look around and they just want somebody to take them seriously. I can tell you that because I meet with many of them. I talk to them at conferences. It's a huge thing to us that we want some people to understand that what we do with the next generation, it matters. Like it really matters. And not only now, but it matters for the future of the church. It's something that has to happen, that we have to reach the next generation for Christ. And so as we talk through this, the question I want you to personally wrestle today is this: will the next generation know God or forget him based off your life? Whew, no pressure, huh? No pressure. This is what I read in Judges 2. And it says, and Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. I don't know, I don't know if I want to live that long or not. But here he goes. So he lived a long time. He had led God's people, Israel, for a long time. And it says, but he's passed away now, and they buried him in the border of his inheritance, a name I will mispronounce, and in the Mount of Ephraim on the north side of the hill of Gash. And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers. And then the one that makes me really, really nervous. And there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works in which he had done for Israel. So will the next generation know God or forget him based off your life? It's something that every single one of us should wrestle with. Will he know him? And I truly believe with all my heart that the next generation is the ripest field on earth. And I can try to prove it to you. Raise your hand if you gave your life to Jesus before the age of 18. Look around the room. It's the truth. It's the ripest field on earth, and the church has got to pay attention. Like there are too many people, honestly, sitting around those saying, well, those kids, they just need to appreciate things better. I get it. I get the heart. I get the mindset. But you know what? Mature people give up their rights so that immature people can grow. I want you to let that sink in for just a minute. Mature people give up their rights so that immature people can grow. It's something that we have to let sink in, right? Everyone, I'm telling you, everyone is spending money on them to get their attention and get their hearts. Hollywood spends billions of dollars to get their attention and get their hearts. Clothing companies, restaurants, social media, everybody is spending money on them. And the teenagers, many times, they walk away from the church because too many times they're telling them, one day you'll matter. And everybody else is telling them, you matter to us now. But so many times the church say, one day you'll matter. And so what does the church need to do? The first thing is this: the church needs to pay attention to their youth. Right? The church needs to pay attention to their youth. And we're going to be in this story in Acts 20. And we see that Paul, he's traveling around, he's teaching about Jesus, and we just find this story it kind of tucked in the middle there of Acts 20, verse 7. It says this, it says, on the first day of the week, we came together to break bread, right? So they're doing church. And it says, Paul spoke to the people, and because he intended to leave the next day, kept on talking until midnight. And there were many lamps in the upstairs room where we were meeting. So have you ever had that guy in church, right? The one who starts preaching, like you could go to lunch and eat and come back and he's still preaching, right? Well, apparently Paul was that guy, right? He's preaching on and on. And it says in verse 9, it says, seated in the window is a young man named Eutychus, who was sinking into a deep sleep. So there's this young man, right? He's sitting in the back. This is the youth ministry, right? Sitting in the back of the church service, okay? And the church as a whole isn't paying attention, and a teenager is about ready to have an incident. He is falling into a deep sleep. And if you've been in church long enough, some of you are thinking, you've been there, right? The preacher's preaching, you don't know what he's saying, and the kids are starting to fall asleep, and you're mad. Why? Because you don't get to. Right? You're like, no, I got to be the adult. As Paul talked on and on. I've heard people say before, like, if I could ever go back in time and meet somebody or experience something in the Bible, like, I'd like to hear Paul preach. No, you wouldn't. He killed people. He killed people. Like, that's what it says. It says, when he was sound asleep, he fell to the ground from the third-story window, was picked up dead. Paul killed teenagers when he preached. That's all I'm thinking about this scene, right? Like Paul he's preaching, youth minister in the back. The church as a whole is not paying attention, and one of the youth falls out the window and dies. And I think if the church doesn't start paying attention, we're going to have a whole lot more casualties from our youth. We've got to pay attention to our youth. It has to happen. The next one is this, is that the church needs to invest in their youth, right? So we see in verse 10, so the boy has fallen from the window and he has died. And it says, Paul went down and threw himself on the young man and put his arms around him. He said, don't be alarmed, he said, he's alive. And if you're a visitor right now, you're going, I ain't coming back to this church no more. You people are weird. Paul, he stops what he's doing to go down and invest in this young man's life. The church needs to invest in their youth, right? We need to invest financially, right? That sometimes we have students that need, or children that need investment or financial help to go off to CIY. I'm tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, I'm getting on with 3 vehicles headed down to Cleveland, Tennessee for a high school trip that's going to hopefully change lives. I'm praying that that's going to continue to happen and God's going to move through them. But we need people to invest financially because there are families that have multiple kids that want to go on the same trip, or multiple kids that want to send their kids to camp throughout the summer. We need people to invest financially to make those things happen. We need people to invest financially in the church so that we can have a student ministry and a children's ministry budget to do those things that we do. We have people that need help financially to make sure that we can invest into the next generation, right? We need some of you to invest relationally. We need more foster parents. We need more foster parents. There are so many kids, so many youth that are going without a solid, stable home to raise them in. And what better than to have a Christ follower raising the next generation, somebody that has been displaced from their family. We need more foster parents. We need some of you to be small group leaders, or while we have squad leaders in the student ministry. We need people that are serving in the nursery. We need people that are serving over in the children's ministry and teaching, or just there to build a relationship. We had a great team that was serving for the VBS that we had a few weeks ago. Like this, we need people to be involved. And I know Sarah could tell you all of her strategies and her plans and her things that she does within the children's ministry, but I'm just going to share you some of mine. Like, what does it look like to serve as a small group leader or a squad leader within the student ministry? And we have these 5 core things that we cling to, that we talk about all the time with our leaders and our people. So if you're ever interested, I'm giving you Squad Leader 101 right now. And you didn't even sign up, right? You're like, this is free, all right. So the first thing is this, is that we ask them to be present. We ask them to show up on Sunday mornings or whenever we meet, whenever they have outings, we ask them to be present physically, because you can't make a difference in somebody's life unless you show up physically, right? We ask them to show up and to have conversations on Sunday mornings, to talk through spiritual issues. We ask them to show up maybe to a sporting event and meet their parents, or to just to cheer them on in whatever they're doing, to show support, to show that you care about them outside of the church walls. We ask them to show up maybe by sending a postcard or from wherever they're at on trip. Hey, I'm on vacation, but I'm thinking about you because I care. Like, we just ask them to show up. We ask them to help create a safe place, because there's a whole lot of other places in their lives that aren't safe. Safe, I mean to ask anything. I pray the teenagers hear this from me a lot, is that, man, the church should be the safest place and the safest people to ask anything. Because if they don't find answers here, they're going to go try to find it somewhere else. And so we better talk about the hard things that are there and create a safe place. So are you a safe place? Is your home a safe place? Are you safe people for them? We ask them to partner with parents, right? Because many parents over the years, we've fallen to the mistake or the thought process, well, I just drop my kid off at church and they'll become a Christ follower. It doesn't work like that. Can that happen? Yes, it can. But the many times the mistake we've made is I've seen teenagers come to church Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, completely closed off and never follow Christ. And many times it's because they failed to see Christ in their own home. As parents, we have to have those conversations. We have to invest in our own kids. We have to be the number one spiritual disciplers of our kids, of our grandkids. of our nieces and nephews, aunts and uncles. We have to be there. We have to invest. We have to partner with parents, like to build, to be a partner with them. And we have to make it personal, that as I ask adults to lead in the student ministry, I talk to them, hey, this is a personal thing. If you're not following Christ and you're not growing, you're not stretching yourselves, then we can't take them where we're not at. So we ask them to make it personal for themselves. And we ask them to help move it out, right? That we want to be there when teenagers or kids are going through these major life transition, when they're getting a driver's license and we have to avoid the sidewalks and all those fun things, right? We be there when they graduate high school and they go into college. We talk to our high school leaders about, hey, many times we've heard, like, right, the one time they felt dropped by their church was when they went off to college. And so we want to make sure that we connect those dots along the way and stick with them as they go into their college years, because it's so important, right? So church, we need you to invest financially, relationally. If you're interested in either one of those things, my name is Jai Hawk. I have an email, jihawk@cometothecrossing.com. The church needs people who are focused on Jesus. Like, we need people, we need mothers and fathers, church leaders who are 100% focused on Jesus. And it says in Acts 20, verse 11, and this is Paul, he says that then he went upstairs again and broke bread and ate, and after talking until daylight, he left, right? Paul never takes his focus off of Jesus. Like, he goes down, he heals the teenager, and he goes right back up to doing church again and breaking bread and talking. He's still focused on Jesus all the way until the next morning when he leaves. So I just have these 3 dangers that I've observed in ministering to students, but not being completely focused on Jesus. And the first one is this, right? We teach morality and not Jesus. Right? So we got teenagers who we say, don't smoke, don't drink, don't chew, don't go with girls that do, right? And so we have kids who don't say bad words. We have kids who don't listen to any secular music at all whatsoever. Maybe they don't watch TV. And so what we're doing sometimes is raising up a bunch of socially misfit kids that look so different from the world. And I'm not saying, here, be careful. I know you're all like, well, wait, be careful what you're saying, Jai. Here's what I'm getting at. Jesus didn't come to die for their morality. Teach them to follow Jesus, and the morality will come. Jesus died to give them a heart to be able to go into the world, not hide from the world, but to go into the world and teach others and be a light. And so it is, we walk that fine line. It can be hard, but we have to have them go into the world. The second one is this. We can push our own agenda onto them. So if you're involved in a teenager's life or a kiddo's life, you're a parent, you're a coach, you're a grandparent, you're an aunt and uncle, a church leader, whatever it is, like that's great. And I am grateful that God has blessed that relationship and that you are there with them. But here's the deal. God's still molding their passion. And they may never be passionate about what you're passionate about. And that's okay. Right? That's okay. Like we all have our own passions, and that's great. That I pray God's using your passions to bring other people to Christ. But your passion may never be theirs. And so what I'm asking you to do is steward theirs. If you see that one of them are passionate about something specific, begin to allow it to grow. Ask questions about it. Engage with it. Invest in it. And allow them, that's when they're going to truly, then when they become, as they continue to get older, they're going to use their passion with those tools, and they're going to make a much greater difference because it's what God wired them to do and not what he wired you to do. So do what you can, but invest, right? And the third one is this. You'll have the desire to quit. And for the students, for the kids, for the next generation, for them to survive, they need us to push on. if I could sit down with every single one of you and talk about the next generation, the number one thing that I would say to you is, don't quit. Don't quit. We have to have followers of Christ who will say, I will not quit reaching the next generation no matter what. I won't stop. It matters too much. It's too important. Verse 12, it says this, the people took the young man home alive and were greatly comforted. In other words, they embraced student ministry, they embraced their teenager and Paul, and they began to take, even though Paul had killed their kid, and brought him back to life, maybe that's a cool trick. Maybe we'll do that in our next ministry retreat. Parents, you okay with that? Okay, maybe not. But Paul refused to quit. He wasn't going to quit. And I'll be honest with you. I don't know if you remember, those of you that have been around the church long enough, you've seen that there used to be one person that led a Sunday school class, and they would do it for the entire year, every Sunday. Year after year. Maybe do you remember that person that led the first grade Sunday school class for 10 years? And I don't know that they ever missed a week. It's a struggle. I'm telling you, for churches across the United States, it's a struggle to get people to serve, especially within the children and the youth. It's too important. It's too important. I'm just going to be honest with you. Whose service did we not have this morning whenever we needed somebody to fill in and teach for the adults? We didn't have the student service today. Not a knock on anything. I just try to make us sometimes as a church aware of those kinds of things, because we need to see the heart of what is so important within the children and the youth. They are so important. We cannot quit. Now, side note, not every single one of you should serve with kids or teenagers. I've talked with you. You maybe should, all right? I love you. Stick with adults. But for those of you that we need you, all right? You are critical in what we do. We need you. I'm going to close real quick with this story from my own life, that there was a man named Mitch. And Mitch, when I was a punk, if you met me before Christ, you maybe not listen. I was a punk. And Mitch took me as a junior high boy on a retreat. He was a children's worker in the church. We were there off and on. We didn't go to a church a lot, but we did some. And so, but whenever he took me on this retreat, he invited me to go out on this camping thing with the other middle schoolers and just spent time with us. And I, he just built a relationship with us. I thought it was so cool. But he wanted to talk to me about Jesus, and I didn't care. And so I didn't give my life to Christ at that point in time whenever I was around Mitch, but I did later. And so I moved back to my hometown at one point, not my home church, but my hometown, to do ministry. And I was exercising. I went out I had a membership at Planet Fitness. And sure enough, one day I walked around the corner, and there was Mitch. And I was like, man, it has been forever since we've seen each other. Like, how's things doing? How's life? How's your kids? He's like, oh, I got grandkids and everything. Same personality, same look, like he was still Mitch, right? Looked like he was stuck in the 80s, but I loved him. It was great. And so just to catch up with him, man, it so softened my heart. It was so good for me. And so, but as I talked with him, it broke my heart. He's like, man, I say, how's things going with church, and how's your relationship with God? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, my relationship with God's all right. Look, we're good. I still read my Bible, and I still have a relationship with him, but church stuff has been tough. I was like, man, I know. I get that. Like, I've been there. There's been the church hurts. There's like those things that we go through or whatnot. And he's like, I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't been to church for 5 years. Oh, man. So I talked with him for a little while, and I said, look, man, I'm over here at this church. I'd love to have you come, but I also know that my home church where you met me and invested in my life, like I know they're still there, and I know they would still gladly have you back. Like I can reconnect you there if you want or whatnot. And he's like, I don't know. I was like, I just challenge you, man. Go back. You need to go back. A few months went by, just doing life. I had totally forgot that I'd had that conversation. And I walked back into Planet Fitness again a few months later, and sure enough, turned the corner, there's Mitch. He said, man, I've been waiting to see you. I keep coming back in thinking I'm going to see you and I'm going to get a chance to talk to you again. And I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, why is that? And he said, because I went back the other day. I went back to church. He said, actually, I've been going back every week since we talked. The fact that I could be able to speak back into his life after he spoke into mine, that's what can happen when you invest in the next generation. I'm telling you, they will speak back into yours. Allow them that opportunity. So, who in the next generation have you been overlooking? Who have you been overlooking? Is there a niece or a nephew? Is there somebody in your neighborhood that you see? Now, talk to their parents first. Don't be the weird person following the teenager around the neighborhood, okay? We have issues with that. Who are you overlooking in your life that's younger than you? Invest in them. Who's younger than you that you could be mentoring? It's so important. Or maybe for some of you, as we have people at the crosses that you can go to as worship, maybe for some of you, you're where Mitch was. And because you can remember things from your youth that maybe you were hurt by the church, or maybe at one point you were taught that the church wasn't a safe place for you. If you're watching online, I pray that you hear this as well, that we are there for you, that you can comment, that you can ask for prayer, that we can talk through those kinds of things, because the church hurt is real. Maybe this morning you need to go to one of the crosses and you need to talk with one of our people about something that you've been hurt within the church. Maybe it was, again, all the way back from your youth. Some things that have stuck with you, that have stunted your spiritual growth because you're just frustrated, you're hurt by it. Or maybe for the first time this morning, you want to make that decision, hey, I'm going to follow Christ for me. Go to one of the crosses and begin that journey and go through that relationship and understand what it means to follow Jesus. I'm going to pray. And if any of those things are you, go to the crosses this morning. I'm going to pray. Father, I'm so thankful for the next generation. That no, not everything I've even done with them has been perfect. There's mess ups and there's issues, but Father, it is so important for us to begin to continue to reach them, to mold them, to shape them for you. Father, may we steward the next generation well, with a heart for them, with grace, with understanding, with compassion. Father, this morning I pray, if I struck a chord with anybody in here this morning, that you would spur them on, that you would continue to ignite that passion inside of them to minister to those young people around them. May we thank you for Jesus. We can never thank you enough for what he has done for us on the cross. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.